Hi everyone, I'm Lessen, and this week we are making a dish from Mexico. We're going to make easy, delicious fajitas. So let's get ready for practical or mise en place. Let's wash our hands, put our hair up, get an apron on, sanitise our surfaces, ready half a bowl of hot soapy water, grab our equipment, and we'll go through the ingredients now. For our fajitas, we're going to want to start with 2 free-range chicken breasts, although if you are vegetarian or vegan, you might want to have Quorn fillets or pieces as an alternative. We'll also need some tortilla wraps, of course. I've chosen wholemeal today because they are much higher in fibre, so better for us. For our chicken marinade, we're going to need a lime, half of a green chilli, although you could use some chilli powder if you don't have fresh chilli, that's fine. We're going to need a clove of garlic, some olive oil, and a handful of fresh coriander. And again, if you don't have any fresh coriander, a tablespoon of dry coriander will suffice. Then we're going to want to add some lovely delicious flavourings and veggies to our fajitas. So we're going to want to have a bell pepper. I'm actually going to do half of a red and half of a green because I want to eat the rainbow. And we'll want an onion as well. Now you could choose a white or brown onion if that's what you have available, but I would recommend a red onion because they're a little bit sweeter, a bit crunchier, and you don't need to cook them for quite as long. And some additional flavourings. We're going to add 50 grams of cheese. We could have a bit of sour cream, although I'm going to use some mayonnaise, some homemade mayonnaise, because I can't eat sour cream. We could have some salsa and some avocado. So we're going to start by making our marinade for our chicken. We're first going to juice our lime. So of course what we want to do is cut it in half first of all. So using the bridge technique, I'm going to take my knife, fingers on the side, thumb goes on like a magnet extension of my arm, goes through the tunnel like a choo-choo train, all the way down, like so. And then with our juicer, just going to locate the centre with the centre of the juicer. And then it's really a 3-part motion. So I'm squeezing with my fingers, I'm twisting with my wrist, and I'm pushing down at the same time. You want to make sure that you are getting the juice out of every bit of flesh in each half, like so. Now I'm going to add my juice to a bowl which is big enough to accommodate my chicken breasts. Now I'm going to take a clove or 2 of garlic. Now you can peel them if you so wish. I tend to not bother because actually the skin will be kept inside our garlic crusher. So pop both in and then crush them both into your bowl for your marinade. There we go, give it a good squeeze and then cut it free gently with a knife. You'll then want to give it a little jiggle around with a spoon, give it a second crush, and you'll get a fair bit more out of there as well. If you are using chili powder, if you like your food really spicy, you and your family like it spicy, I'd recommend probably half a teaspoon for the entire batch. If you don't like it especially spicy, about 1/4 of a teaspoon would be ideal for you. Otherwise, we're going to get to our chili. Now, we need to be extremely cautious with using fresh chilies. If we get any of the oils, the residues onto our fingers, if we were to touch our face, our eyes, it can be extremely painful. And I've had students who have unfortunately done that. So I tend to not actually cook with fresh chili so much at home, but in order to do so, we are going to just use the claw, cut the end free, and then with the bridge, slice it all the way down. Now it's up to you how much you'd actually like to add, so we recommend half. You could even do maybe 1/4 of the chilli if you only want a little bit of spice. So the first thing to do is to remove the seeds. Now I'm going to try not to touch it with my fingers as much as possible without obviously hurting myself with my knife. And now I want to cut it into very, very fine slivers, as fine as you can get them. So using the claw, then bunch them all together, and then again chop them as finely as you possibly can. You don't want somebody to have a mouthful, big piece of chilli. They're not going to thank you for that. Once your chilli is finely chopped, you can add it into your marinade. And then you will want to go and wash your hands and your knife very thoroughly, okay, using lots of soap. Really try and get underneath your nails as well. If you are using dry coriander, I would recommend between 1/2 and 1 tablespoon of that. Otherwise we can get to our little bunch of fresh coriander. Now with any herbs, if there are any woody stalks, you'll want to cut the leaves or pull the leaves free of those woody stalks. Coriander doesn't really tend to suffer from that. So what we're going to do is we're going to bunch it up. We're going to roll. Bunch it all together until it's just a little tube like so. Then we're going to use our claw and we're going to cut nice and fine all the way through. Look how easy that is. All the way down. There you go. And there's my lovely fresh coriander. Now we're going to prepare our chicken next. If you have just one chopping board at home, as many families do, then you will need to wash it after you have prepared your chicken, as we're about to next. If we are at school, we will have access to both white and red chopping boards. Obviously red denotes raw meat, so that's the one that you should be using. And now we can prepare our chicken. So we're going to just pop them on our chopping board, and we're going to use the claw and just cut long strips. If there are any parts which are especially tough, so this still has a little bit of cartilage left in it, then you obviously just need to cut that free. But try not to waste any of the food. Once you have pieces like this, if this is particularly wide, you might want to cut it in half again so that we have some nice fine strips, and then we do that for all our chicken. So now that I've prepared my chicken, I'm going to pop it into my marinade and use my hands to really move it all around and coat it with that delicious mix. That's going to be really flavoursome. The longer we can leave meat in marinade, the stronger the flavour. If you have the option, you could even do it overnight, but we're just going to make do with the time that we have. There we go, lovely, and I'm going to go wash my hands. Next I'm going to prepare my onion. So hopefully remember how to dice an onion. We're going to do some strips though, so we're going to go through the process except for everything but dice it. So we need to cut through it from pole to pole, not around the equator, using the bridge all the way through. Remove any bits of skin or root hairs that are potentially going to get into our food. Flip it on over. Want to cut off the stalk into our bits bowl, and then we can peel it. Don't bother peeling it at the beginning, it's way too faffy. Then we're going to cut parallel to the chopping board. Give it a little wiggle, mind our fingers. Fingers should be right on the top, out of the way in case it should slip. Then we're going to cut our columns. So tip of the knife all the way down. The closer the columns, the better the outcome will be. Mind your thumb as you get to the end. You can use the bridge and then simply cut the root free. And there are our little sliver ribbons like so. Next we want to prepare our pepper. Now I've washed mine because of course if we eat the skin we want to make sure we have washed it. I'm going to do half of a red and half of a green. So when we prepare our peppers, this is the way that I would recommend. Of course there are different ways of doing it, but if you use the claw on the top and put your knife on the side and you're going to follow the curve of the pepper, and by doing so, by facing outwards, it avoids chopping into the seeds at all. There we go, all the way down, which reduces the mess on our chopping board. Now, most of the time we say flat side down in order to stop things from rolling around, but peppers are really the exception because the skin is very slippery and we're likely to cut ourselves. So flip it on over and the knife will grip into the flesh much more easily. We want to do some nice long strips all the way down, moving my fingers as I go. I can even use the bridge if I need to. I would say those are probably a little bit long, so I'm just going to cut those in half, just like that. And then we want to grate our cheese as well. So we want the wide grate side, not the zest or the intermediate or the slice. Make sure your hand is at the top, not holding it by the sides. Use long strokes all the way up and down. And as you get closer to the end, you want to put your fingers flat. While that seems counterintuitive, it means that you can feel when the grater is getting close, and if you slow right down, you are much less likely to grate your fingers. There we go. And now we have our avocado. If you're interested, the way that you can tell when avocado's ripe is if you remove the little pit. So I'm going to use the bridge. I'm going to go through with my knife and I'm going to cut all the way around. Now there is a stone inside, so you need to just roll it over the top of the stone, try and join up with your line from before. I'm going to take both sides in each hand and you're going to twist it counterclockwise from one another. There we go. There is a way to remove the stone with a knife, but I'm going to not show you that way. Instead, what I'm going to recommend is that you cut around, again, around the stone, twist free, and then you should be able to pop the stone out nice and easily with your fingers. The easiest way to remove the flesh out of an avocado skin is to get a knife and just run it between the two. Hey, look how easy that was. And it goes for even halves as well if you just get the end of your spoon in and pull it free. Then we want to put our flat side down and we're going to use our claw to cut some nice little even strips all the way through. It's very, very soft, so it's very satisfying and very easy. There we go, and those would be perfect for our fajitas. Now, avocado does start to go brown if it's left out for any real period of time, so you can either rub it with a little bit of oil or a little bit of lemon juice, or you can just do this stage last before you are about to prepare your fajitas in total. I have got a pan on a fairly high heat. I'm going to turn it down to a medium high now that it's come up to temperature. I've got the equivalent of about 2 tablespoons of olive oil in there, ready to go, ready to receive my chicken. So pop it in, mind your fingers. And then with a wooden spatula or a wooden spoon, you want to just move it around. So I'm going to let that cook for a total of about 6-7 minutes or so. You'll want to flip the pieces over about halfway through, or keep an eye on them, and they should start to turn white, just like that. So I've turned them all over and you can see they are starting to go white, which is great. Now you can see there's still a lot of bubbling going on. That's because a lot of the water is still coming off. Often chicken is artificially injected with extra liquid to make it look bulkier as well, unfortunately. So we have to just wait for that to boil down. And we want a little bit of a gentle golden colour just on the edges. So it's taking a bit of colour on the underside now. They're starting to go just a little bit brown, which is great. Now I can add in the rest of the vegetables. So we want it to be above 68 degrees. If you don't have a meat thermometer at home, as many of us don't, the next best way of testing if your chicken is done is to take the largest piece and cut it in half. If it's still pink in the middle, which this isn't, then it needs a little bit longer. And give everything a good stir. Now we want these veg to get lovely and hot, but we want them to keep their crunch. We don't want them to be really soggy. They won't need very long at all, about 3, 4, 5 minutes. There we go, look at that. That is just superb. I've still got a decent good crunch to those peppers. The red onions have just cooked down just enough. They're still going to be deliciously sweet, and that marinade, it smells divine. Now we want to remember that we are preparing the equivalent of 6 tortillas, so I like to physically divide everything up. Don't want anyone going without, so that's half, and then into thirds again. So try and visualise in each case what 1/6 of your portions is going to look like. So I'm going to lay it out, make it look really appetising, make sure that every mouthful is going to have a little bit of everything, a little bit of pepper, chicken and onion. Now we're going to add a spoonful of our sour cream, dot it along on there, a spoonful or 2 of our salsa, there we go, a good sprinkle of cheese, and 2 or 3 slices of our avocado. Again, remember this, we'll try and take 1/6 of this. And then what we want to do is roll it up. You can see I've kept all my fillings to one side, sort of in 2/3, keeping 1/3 free. And the reason is I'm going to take the end nearest me, I'm going to roll it up, I'm going to really try and tuck it under the food that's inside. Then I'm going to take the end with no food in it, fold it over, and then roll it up. If some fillings spill out of the left hand side, that doesn't matter. There we go. And there is a perfectly made fajita. What an easy way to make such a filling, delicious dish for your family. The lovely thing about fajitas is that aside from those kind of ingredients which tend to be conventional and associated with places like Mexico, you could add whatever veggies that you really like. I often add a little bit of sweet corn or maybe even some sweet potato. So I hope you enjoy making that with me. I'll see you next time.